Right. Bang, bang, bang. Dr. McCoull.
Ross Patterson, how are we?
Very well, man. Very well. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good.
Good.
It's really exciting to be here and see the setup. The place looks amazing.
Thanks, man.
Far beyond anything I could expect. It's cool.
Well, man, it was it's been a little bit of work to put it all together. But yeah, I thought a lot about who the first guest should be on the Patterson Podcast, and then you came to mind. I was like, yes, that would be absolutely fantastic. A man with extensive knowledge and experience, and
It's very kind
and handsome as well.
You're starting off well.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it's awesome to be here, man. I think we've had many a good conversation over the years that we've known each other, so it's cool to be here when you get in the podcast set up.
Put it on record.
Yeah.
So we have known each other for quite a long time.
Yeah, getting close to 2 decades now.
Yeah.
I think, practically grown up together.
Yeah.
Which is quite an amazing and rare thing.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the time.
Yeah, exactly. And when we were growing up, especially when we were in high school, we both had like a shared goal of studying medicine.
That was right. Yeah.
So we went to open days.
Yeah.
Did we do work? No, I don't think we did any work experience.
We didn't do the
together.
work experience together. We went to some very, very interesting open days where it was a lot of the talk was kind of almost encouraging us not to go and do medicine. I don't know if you remember some of those open days in Glasgow where the message was very negative kind of coming out. But
Yeah,
it's
true. I'd
interesting.
actually forgotten that.
Yeah.
I suppose maybe they're trying to just discourage people that aren't that committed.
Yes, I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
Because I suppose it's so intense.
Yeah, and I think at the time, we would probably fit into that category. I think it's relatively fair to say as 16-year-olds who were kind of, maybe it wasn't necessarily our decision to maybe try and go do medicine at that point in our life. So yeah, we were probably the people they were targeting with those messages.
Yeah, because my path led in other directions. It has led to here.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
But you pursued medicine.
Yes, we got there in the end.
Yeah.
Slightly more of a roundabout way than maybe most people end up getting there, but yep, nice to say that kind of the journey of studying has at least come to a close for now. Yeah, good.
Yeah, the studying has come to a close, and now you are a junior doctor.
I'm indeed.
You're Dr. McCoull.
Yeah, Dr. McCoull. Yeah. We got there.
That's still crazy to say.
Yeah, it's kind of hasn't really settled in for me either. Like, yeah, when people say it at work, like if someone come up and they'll address you as doctor, and then just always have to correct them, please just call me Scott. doesn't quite feel real yet.
What should I call you?
You call me Scott.
Billy Scott.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's cool, man. It's amazing, and because you did first you did an undergrad in physiology.
Yeah.
And then you did a medical degree.
Did medicine afterwards, yeah. Which, looking back, I think was the right way round to do it. So we tried getting into medicine the first time, but what like you said before, wasn't really 100% committed to it. Wasn't exactly what I wanted to do. So it was nice to go back and do it with a bit more life experience, a bit more understanding of how everything worked, and I feel like I got a lot more out of it going in at an older age than going in fresh out of school. Got a lot of admiration for all my colleagues that have gone in fresh out of school and they've gone straight through and they've done it, because I don't think I could have done it at that age. So there's a lot of very impressive people that have done that.
Why did you do that? Why did you, after completing a degree in physiology, why did you decide medicine is what I want to do?
Yeah, so I think it was never, for the first 2 years of the physiology course, it wasn't really on my mind. But then as we got further through, you kind of got a little bit more specialised in terms of the stuff you were learning. And we would get a lot of lectures from doctors. So you would learn the physiology, and then you would learn the physiology in the context of where things would go wrong. And I always found that incredibly interesting. And I thought the people that were delivering the lectures, I liked the way that they kind of conveyed the information, and they were really enthusiastic about everything they talked about. So I'd say it was went and did medicine more of it because I wanted to study medicine. I was like, this sounds cool. I want to know this sort of stuff, rather than going in with, I know a lot of people go in with the idea of they want to become a doctor. But initially when I went in, that wasn't really my main reason for going in. It's because I wanted to study medicine, and that kind of felt like a kind of logical follow on from the physiology degree. And then once the kind of idea settled in, and speaking to more people and people encouraging, like, yeah, go for it. A lot of people do it after a first degree, and haven't looked back. It's good.
What do you mean by you wanted to study medicine rather than be a doctor? Do you mean you wanted to cure illness? Is that
more in the sense of, I didn't go in with the idea of looking at myself as a doctor at the end. Obviously knew that the medical degree would lead to becoming a doctor, but it was more, I kind of got a glimpse of what studying medicine would look like, and kind of the knowledge that you needed and what you would learn as you went through. So in medicine, you can take a year out and go and do what's called an intercalated degree, where you can study a different subject. So I had some medical students that would come in and they would study physiology for the year before going back to medical school. And then speaking to them, the kind of overarching thing was they knew a little bit about a lot, whereas when you go into kind of just do physiology, or you just do anatomy, or you just do pharmacology, you learn a lot about that one specific area. But I was kind of always more attracted to knowing a little bit about loads of different things rather than knowing a lot about one specific thing. And then speaking to them, they would all say, oh yeah, it's great because you do like a little bit of everything. And I was like, oh, I want to have that sort of knowledge. That sounds really interesting. So that's kind of what I mean by I wanted to study medicine. Like, I wanted to actually do the curriculum and learn all the things that medicine would offer.
What do you think it is that interests you about the human body so much, and why is it, what attracts you to study it for, like, so you studied it for, what was that collectively? Was it 5? Was it maybe
4
9
years? Yeah, 9 years total.
Yes, yeah. 9 years of study of the human body. What is it that kind of drives you and motivates you and makes you want to keep learning more and learn broadly, but then also learn specialisms as well? What is it that kind of ignites you and drives you forward?
Yeah, it's a good question. I suppose it's kind of also in like a broader context. It's like, why do we have, or how do you find interest in almost any sort of subject? I suppose after I could kind of push the question back to you in terms of like, why did journalism attract you? But in terms of medicine, maybe it's one of those that you start studying something because it maybe clicks for whatever reason. It makes a little bit of sense. I always found it really interesting. In physiology, it's quite like process orientated in terms of this happens because of this, and it was nice to kind of be able to ask loads of questions, but then also be able to find loads of answers to, oh, this happens because of this, or that happens because of this. So I can't really think of any specific reason why I find it interesting. It was just always one of those that whenever I would learn something, I'd be like, oh, that's cool. Like, it would just kind of naturally, it would be like, oh, that's a really interesting thing. And then I think a lot of people who teach medicine and teach human biology are quite passionate and interested about it. So you see the enthusiasm on their side, and that can be almost contagious, and then you become enthusiastic in it. And then there's also, it's kind of like you can never know everything, which is I think an interesting thing, and quite a good thing to have in a subject, is you will literally never know everything there is to know about the body, but that means you get to always learn something new, which is quite cool. So yeah, maybe that's where I'd kind of pass it back to you in the sense of, what was it about journalism that attracted you? Like, why did you want to go and study that?
That is, I think because it aligned very closely, as you're saying, just with personal interest and with personality, and maybe with some natural strengths as well. So one thing I absolutely love to do is just to have conversations with people. I love to talk to people, and that is kind of at the core of journalism. I love to write as well. I also write at the core of journalism. And so I could see that, because I started a degree straight out of high school. I was still 17 when we went to Glasgow Uni at the same time together. I was 17 when I started that degree. And then I ended up dropping out still in first year. And I was just there for all the wrong reasons. I was there just because I thought I should do it, and because it was kind of expected of me. And teachers in high school said that it was kind of like, what are you going to study, rather than like, do you want to go to university kind of thing. And I ended up there, and I was just, I mean, you saw me, I was an absolute mess. but then, you know, I did a bit of traveling and working and jobs and stuff, and you kind of get to know yourself a little bit better, your interests, your what you're passionate about, and then someone else suggested to me a girl called Emma in South America somewhere. She was like, "Oh, you might enjoy journalism," and I was like, "You know what? You're right. Actually, I might enjoy that." And then it just made sense. It all kind of lined up. And then when I came to study journalism, it was similar to you. I think I was 22 when I started that degree, but I was just there for all the right reasons this time. I had such a strong why. I was really keen to be there, and I was kind of like, I was a bit of a nerd, you know. I was sitting in the front row and I was answering questions, and but it just meant that I applied myself and I wanted to be there. I didn't miss anything. I was always on time, and it was the same as you were alluding to as well, that I think it's important that when you're trying to choose what you want to do, that you take on something that you can do for a long time. So like there's an idea of like infinite games and finite games, and like a game of football is a finite game. It's like a 90-minute game, whereas an infinite game is something like learning about the human body. It's something you can do perpetually and forever. And I suppose because we're both in our 20s, hopefully we've got a good bit of life left. You never know.
Never know.
But yeah, you want to do things that you want to do for a very long period of time. And so now that you've completed your 2 degrees and you are a doctor, what stage are you at now in your career?
So once you do medical school in the UK, you enter into what's called foundation training, and it's a 2-year program where you rotate through 6 different specialties, and the idea of it is to kind of get a broad array of experience in a host of different specialties, and then after that you kind of start deciding which specialties you're going to enter into. So just now I would be classed as a FY1, so a foundation year 1, and then that's the path that kind of everyone usually takes when they first leave medical school.
And so what are you working in? What is the...
So just now I'm in general medicine, based specifically in the renal unit, in one of the hospitals just outside of Glasgow. So that's basically dealing with people with kidney problems for the most part, and then you'll also cover different areas of the hospital if it's outside of normal hours, whether that's 5 to 9 or on weekends.
And what is that? What does a kind of a day in the life of your job look like? What time do you start? What time, or what is coming across your desk? What are your responsibilities?
Yeah. So as kind of the most junior doctor in the hospital, your role is very different from the more senior doctors, like the consultants and the registrars, the people that have been doing the job for years. And in terms of the actual day itself, it can depend where you are and what type of shift you're working. But if you look at like a 9 to 5, which is what most of the shifts in this block are, with the occasional 12-hour day and occasional weekend, you come in and you'll go round with one of the consultants, so they're the most senior doctor in the ward, and they'll see patients, and then they will come up with plans based on how that patient is doing on that day, where they've been before, and where they think things will maybe go in the future. And you go around each patient, you see them, and basically my job as the FY1 is to make sure that their plan actually happens, whether that's being requesting certain scans or liaising with different specialties, basically making sure that the plan they put in place is going to happen. That's the main role that I'll have. And then, like all things in life, there'll be kind of things that maybe don't go as planned and things that change, and then you kind of just deal with any changes that happens. If someone maybe becomes more unwell than you anticipated, I might be the first one to go and see them. I could review them, potentially come up with a plan for how I think we should manage them there, and then relay that back to the seniors. But for the most part, I'd say my understanding of it so far, from being very, very early in the job, is for the most part, when there's days when the seniors are there, just make sure that the plans actually happen, and then days where I might be the most senior person there, come up with what I think is like a sensible and appropriate plan at the time, and if I need any help, just ask for help from a someone a bit more senior, because there's always help available. I think there's a bit of a misconception that when you first go into the job, you're just left on your own, you're running an entire hospital by yourself. And in my experience, it has not been like that at all. There has been times where you're working independently, and you're maybe getting to the point where like, oh, it could be good to have a bit of help, but help might not arrive for 5 to 20 minutes, and then things can get a little bit stressful. For the most part, help is always available, which is a reassuring thing to know when you're in there.
That is, yeah. What kind of care do you provide people? So if someone's in a renal unit in your hospital, and say you're on the ward rounds in the morning, what are you seeing? What are you trying to help to treat?
So if we talk kind of like in broad terms of actual kidney patients, so like I said before, I'm very much not a kidney specialist, but from my experience of kind of being in the kidney unit, you have a lot of people that have what's called chronic kidney disease. So that's kind of gradual deterioration in the function of their kidneys over a very, very long period of time. And over time, if your kidney function can drop far enough, you might end up having to go on to one of the kidney machines, the dialysis machines, which essentially does the job of the kidneys. So there'll be a lot of people that come in regularly. They've been doing it for years. They come into the kidney unit, they'll get their dialysis, and then they'll go away. But sometimes you can get people that they also have kidney problems, but maybe they get another illness at the same time. So you might be mainly come into the ward because you need to manage their kind of kidney problem, but also at the same time you might be managing another illness that is making the kidney problem worse, or vice versa. You can also get a lot of people that come in. So if someone gets really, really unwell, eventually their kidneys will most likely their kidney function will most likely become impaired at some point if someone's really, really unwell. So that might end up in them coming to the kidney unit where their kind of kidneys are looked after by the kidney specialists. But if we talk more in kind of like broad terms of what these like ward rounds actually look like, so you would first if you have a patient that the consultant's never met before, they might look back through previous notes, try and figure out, okay, who is this person? What sort of background in terms of their medical history do they have? And why are they in hospital now? And then they kind of look at the progress up until then, and they might have a list of issues that they're kind of in hospital for. Say they've got a chest infection, or they have a specific problem with their kidneys, or there's something else going on. And then you can look at the progress up until that point, see where they are today based on imaging. You might have chest x-rays, ECGs, blood tests that you might have, and then they'll go and see the person. How do they appear clinically in terms of like how are they feeling on the day? If you examine them, what sort of things are you coming across? And then based on all of that information, they'll make a plan based on where they think this person's care should go, implement the plan, which usually is one of the main things. That's my main role, is make sure the plan is implemented.
What does the plan look like? What are you planning?
So it can really vary day to day. So say, if we use an example of, say someone comes in with a chest infection. Now, they might go to their GP and they're feeling pretty rotten, they're quite out of breath, they're coughing up loads of gunk, and the GP thinks they should probably go to hospital. So then they go to hospital, maybe that's through A&E. A&E recognise that this person's probably too unwell to go home, so then they get admitted into hospital. And in terms of things that we might do for someone in that situation, you might give them antibiotics to treat the infection. And also if someone has a chest infection, maybe their lungs aren't working as well as they normally would, so they might require a little bit more supplementary oxygen than they would otherwise, so you might give them a little bit of oxygen. So a plan could be you get a chest x-ray to look and see, can you see any kind of structural changes in the person's lungs? A plan could also be, let's try and reduce the amount of oxygen that person needs. So say this person needs 5 litres of oxygen at this point in time. You might try and say, oh, can we drop that down to 4 litres the next day, or to 3 litres the next day? So the plan very much varies depending on all the factors I kind of mentioned before. How's the person actually feeling today? Are the blood tests that you kind of look for in each situation improving or getting worse? you usually gather all the information that's happened before and the information on the day, come up with a plan, and then see, has that plan made the situation the same, better, or worse, and then adjust accordingly.
How long are people usually kind of spending in your unit? How long do you get to look after people, and do you get to know them while they're there and understand their story and where they're coming from?
It can really, really vary. Some people can be in and out kind of the same day. Some people can be there for weeks to months. And you do have people that you've known for quite a long time, and it's kind of, you do get to know them, and it's nice, like seeing the same faces, and you can kind of have shared kind of, it's nice to basically get to know people over a longer period of time. Yeah, exactly. You can form relationships with people, which is quite nice. But yeah, it can really vary in terms of the length of time that people are in, because it depends what reason they're in for and how unwell someone is.
Yeah. So how long have you been there for now?
So it's still very early days, only about 2.5 months.
Right.
Yeah.
And how long will you be?
So I'll be there for another 6 weeks and then move on to the next thing. So you spend 4 months in each area and then you move on, and 4 months in each area and you move on, which is good in the sense that you get loads of experience, but it's bad in the sense that you might feel like you're just kind of settling into a place and then you move on to the next one. So pros and cons, I think, to rotating relatively frequently.
What's the next block? Where are you going next?
Going to general surgery next.
Cool.
Yeah.
What would that be like?
So it's, when you kind of explain it to people, they think, oh, you're going to be in theatre doing, like, cutting people open, doing that sort of thing. The role of an FY1 is very much not that. I'll be based on the wards, essentially managing the medical problems that people who are getting surgeries come in with. So it'll mainly be ward-based, looking after people that have either had surgery or are going for surgery, rather than actually being the one holding the scalpel. So
you won't be the head surgeon?
I won't be the head surgeon. I know. I was just as annoyed as you.
That will be interesting. With surgery, do you think, as I was saying earlier, I did some work experience because I thought about doing medicine when I was in high school, and one of the days was shadowing an anaesthetist in surgery, and it was wild. Like, the stuff that, like, modern medicine is miraculous in many ways. Just the capabilities are unbelievable. Like, they're having people. I remember one woman came in. I was with him. He spoke to her beforehand, described what was going to happen, brought her into the room. What's that room called? Like, the room before you go into surgery?
Oh, the anaesthetics room. Sort of thing,
yeah. So where she received her anesthesia, put her to sleep. He was just explaining it to me. It's almost like it sounded like you almost kill someone a little bit. Like, you take away their so you have to put them on life support, right? You do their breathing and stuff for them, with the machines and stuff. He put her under, and then went into the operating theatre, and she was having her thyroid removed, and they like cut along the neck and then took all of the skin up, and then the skin was like up around her face. Yeah. And then the surgery lasted, it was maybe 2 hours or so. I can't remember if I'm remembering correctly. I think they might have had to remove part of it because it might have been cancerous, and it was sent to the where would you send stuff?
Sent to the labs to investigate it.
Yeah, sent to the labs. And then we kind of had to wait for that. But meanwhile, she was just kind of there with the kind of the skin of her neck peeled up, and then they were also cauterizing and burning and stuff. Yeah. And then they removed it, and then it was fine, and then they sewed her back up, and then she went through, and then she came back round, and then she was having, like, speaking again and having a conversation again. I was just like, what
is going on?
What has just happened there? Like, it was unbelievable. I'm sure she knew what was happening to her, but everyone was so blasé. But I was just there like, this is unbelievable. Like, the capabilities are unbelievable. Does that ever strike you when you're working in hospitals? Just
I think surgery is one of the kind of the best examples of where that sort of feeling probably rises, because there is a structural problem, go in, fix structural problem, person leaves and they're fixed. Like that, I can imagine, especially in things like you hear that a lot from orthopedic doctors. Like if someone comes in, they've got a broken bone, then you literally just go in, mechanically fix the broken bone, and they could literally walk out the same day. Like there must be an immense gratification. Like someone comes in, they're like femur, their thigh bone is literally snapped in half, and you put a massive metal rod in it, and they just walk out the next day. You'd be like, that feels pretty good. So you can, I think I can definitely appreciate why people are like attracted to that sort of thing. I remember, so I was actually in a thyroid surgery. I got to help the consultant do part of the surgery, and when you mentioned the burning, so that's instead of using kind of things to cut away the tissues, you'll use what's called cautery, so a very, very hot piece of metal to cut things away instead. And I was kind of he was like just guiding me very much supervised, just so people know I'm not doing like any sort of neck surgery just on my own. But he was like, yeah, cut here, cut there. And he was like, just make sure you don't go too close to that thing over there, this massive pulsing red thing. Which was the carotid artery, which is one of the main arteries that supplies all the blood to your brain. And I was like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna make sure I go nowhere near that. But he was just so like chill, relaxed, and maybe it's one of those that when you don't have any experience in it, it feels just like, wow, this is bewildering almost. But I suppose like anything, if it's your day job and you do it in and out, then you just get deconditioned to it. But yeah, so a lot of times you take a step back and you're like, what are we actually doing here? This is amazing.
Have there been any moments that really have stuck with you while you've been, because you're also working in hospitals during your degree as well?
Yeah.
And now you're a professional doctor. Have there been any like standout moments that you remember that you were just like, wow, this is just changed the way you look at the world or changed the way you understand life? Or
I think probably loads actually. I think maybe I can't really think of any specific single moment, but one thing that is interesting that kind of the doctors in the Unit 1 in particular is really, really good at is having discussions about discussions around end of life and what people would want toward when they're nearing kind of the end of their lives, and what sort of things are maybe appropriate towards the end of their lives, in the sense of if me or you went into hospital, we would want every intervention possible to make sure that we came out of hospital alive. Like that could lead to having machines breathe for us. Basically every intervention, we're kind of young, fit people. We want to just throw the book at us to make sure that we come out and we're going to basically survive. Whereas if you take someone who's maybe 90 years old and they've got a few other health conditions that have been grumbling in the background, and they kind of gradually been maybe moving the wrong way in terms of their health for the past 10 years, seeing conversations with those people about, is that really appropriate for you? Like, would you really want to try all of those different things? Because you also have to factor in that these are quite invasive, kind of harmful interventions that you could put someone through, and they might not actually come out the other end of it. So I think seeing the conversations about what people want towards the end of their lives has been quite a kind of powerful thing, and makes me kind of look at the world slightly differently. But of course, in each of those conversations is very individual. So I feel like that's where the art side of medicine comes in. There's very much a strong science part of medicine, but having those conversations is very much an art. And I've seen some people do it really, really well. And I've seen some people do it what I would think is quite poorly, and the discussion has almost been emotionally harmful for the other person. I'd say that's probably one of the biggest things I've noticed since actually starting the job.
And so how do you think, what have you learned about navigating that?
I think there's one thing that it was during a random tutorial in second year that was nothing to do with this at all, but we had a really, really good doctor who he just mentioned kind of, it was a bit of a different topic, but it was talking about trying to change someone's mind. which is a really big thing you kind of try and do in medicine. You talk about it a lot in terms of trying to stop people from drinking too much, or trying to stop people from smoking, kind of like the phases of changing someone's mind. One of the things he mentioned that is, if you really, really want to change someone's mind, it starts off by just planting a seed. And you don't actually go in 100% and be like, you've got to do this, this, and this because of this, this, and that, because people aren't going to, it's not going to resonate with anyone. They're just going to become defensive, standoffish. Whereas if you kind of start, just open the conversation up, let it settle, let people think about it, they're usually a lot more amenable to further discussions.
So what does it mean to plant a seed? How might you navigate that? How might you?
So I think it depends on the situation, and I've heard like loads of kind of good language used, and a lot of times you hear something that someone else says and you kind of like, oh, I like that, I'm gonna use that when I'm speaking to someone. So it might be someone comes in, maybe it's this 90-year-old person. The conversation might be something along the lines of kind of, have you thought about how you would want things to go if you were to get worse? So say it's someone, they're 90, they're probably going to get home, they're going to be fine, but they've been in hospital a couple times and they're most likely going to be in hospital again. So you might plant the seed of just kind of mentioning, have you thought about these sort of things? Have you thought about what you would want further down the line? And this is usually kind of related to discussions about, if someone's heart were to stop, would you want them to kind of undergo CPR, which can be a very kind of damaging thing. You're obviously doing the compressions on the chest, which can kind of break ribs, and a lot of people don't really do too well after they've had that sort of thing done. Now, you might not jump straight into that sort of conversation, but you might just start getting them to think about it, like what sort of things would you want and what sort of things would you not want, so that if they were to come into hospital again later down the line and they were more unwell the next time they came into hospital, and someone maybe brings up that discussion again, at least it's not the first time that's been brought up. It's kind of good to have these conversations early when someone's well and they're able to think it through, rather than if someone comes in and they're really, really unwell, then it can be quite stressful to start talking about these sorts of things then, rather than earlier on, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's made me think of two things there. One, also, absolutely milking this work experience when I was in high school. But it was exactly what you said. I also was shadowing a cardiologist for a day. Yeah. And that was exactly the conversation we had. He was like, I've got sometimes patients in their 80s. If they go into cardiac arrest, you have the do not resuscitate. Mm-hmm. And he was saying that we need to be having these conversations about dying, because so often or sometimes it happens that he has, especially families, mm-hmm. and they'll be like, we have this very old woman that then they want me to go and do CPR or whatever, and as you say, break ribs, and you might buy a few more months, maybe another year, but you've also fractured all the ribs, like, I don't know, you maybe damage their sternum, just like their whole chest cavity under an immense amount of pressure, to buy a bit more time in intensive care sometimes.
And then what quality of life do they have in those few extra months?
Exactly. And surely they'd be in agony as well after they woke up, if they did survive. And it does seem downstream of maybe a bit of an inability for us to talk candidly about death.
I was going to bring that up, when you said that.
Yeah, because the second thing I was going to say was that you gave me a book for my birthday, which was a few weeks ago, and it was Being Mortal by Atul Gawande.
Yeah.
Why did you give me that? Why did you think I should read that?
So I think maybe everyone has, sometimes they have books they read which kind of really change how they look at certain things. And I read Being Mortal for the first time during medical school, and it kind of just like fundamentally changed how I look at basically how you should think about life, death, and everything in between. I think it kind of made me recognise that we're not very good at talking about death in the UK. It's not really something we kind of talk about openly in our culture, and we tend to shy away from the conversation. It's almost like a taboo subject that people don't even want to engage in the topic, which I think only really leads to harm. I can't really think of any reason why that would be beneficial, apart from maybe in the short term where you get to avoid the kind of emotional harm from having the discomfort. But unfortunately, we have to have difficult conversations. It always makes things better in the long term. But in terms of why I thought you should read it, is I think just some of the ideas kind of challenge a lot of the ways we think about things. And I know you're someone who always likes to come across new ideas that challenge current ways of thinking. But yeah, it was a great book that I think I would recommend everyone reading, but especially everyone in healthcare. I think it's very eye-opening, and it gives a very fresh perspective and healthy perspective on how we look at death and dying.
Yeah, it was absolutely fantastic. Cried multiple times reading it. It's so emotional, man. It was just so human, and he's writing about his dad and Atul Gawande. I also have read the Checklist Manifesto by Atul Gawande, so already a fan. He's a brilliant writer, great storyteller. But I think Being Mortal was definitely better. You said that you thought it was one of his best books.
It's my favourite one so far. Yeah, I've not managed to read too many more of the other ones, but yeah, it was great.
It was so, and it's just such an important. I mean, death is, we're all going to die.
Yeah.
Everybody in this room is going to die, and everybody listening to this podcast is going to die as well. All 4 of them. Yeah. But hi, Mum.
Iffy.
But yeah, it is something that's come from, and for our relatives and our families and our nearest and dearest and everyone. But as you say, and I feel like death is we're so separated from it as well, because it is something that happens in hospitals. It's something that happens. It's what we often don't see it. Whereas in a lot of other cultures, like in Eastern cultures, they'll spend time with the body. You'll cremate your family members. I've never seen a dead body, like a dead human body. I was thinking about that the other day. That's probably quite unusual. I reckon most humans throughout history would probably have seen other dead humans, or at least come in contact with them.
Yeah. I think, making the comparison to Eastern cultures seems very appropriate. I remember visiting Nepal, and you would go to temples where they would kind of routinely they would float the dead bodies kind of down the river, or bathe them in the river, whereas you would never see that in the UK or even in kind of more Western cultures. So maybe I don't think it's not unusual here, but it's maybe unusual in the kind of grand scheme of human existence to have not seen a dead body. One thing made me think of there is, we don't like talking about death, but we also maybe don't try and think of the idea of having a good death and what does like a good death look like. One thing that comes up quite often in hospital-based conversations is, where do you want to die? That can be it's a very, very important thing for a lot of people. Like, do you want to die in your own home, or do you want to die in a hospice, or do you want to die here in the ward where you're quite comfortable, you know a lot of the different members of staff, and that could all contribute towards someone having a good death. Because I think we could all maybe think in our head, if you thought in your head the idea of a bad death, it'll be different for everyone, but you probably have some kind of images or things that jump to mind. But we usually only think of, oh, that was a bad way to go. But we don't think in the flip side of what would be a good way to go.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, 100%. Because that is one thing that Atul Gawande was writing in that book, was that, where do you want to die? Like, what, and what who do you want to have with you? And what would your I know it's...
No, it's good to think about. Just because we're young doesn't mean we
What do you think is
the ripe old age of 27? Like,
well, what do you think is a good way to die? Like, what's the?
I suppose it's just like, I don't know, when you hear of people like, oh, they passed away in their own home, surrounded by the people they care about, and they passed away comfortably, not in pain, not in discomfort. You're like, oh, you really ask for much more than that? Like, that sounds. I don't want to be like, that sounds pretty good to me, but like, it does sound like a good, good death. Yeah.
Yeah, in comfort and surrounded by your loved ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was another thing that Atul Gawande was saying in that book, was that it's like, if you can have these conversations, these difficult conversations, then you can make a plan. Yeah. And then you can make it peaceful and far less painful. And because as you were, I thought it was a great thing you said about the science, but also the art of medicine. And that's what Gwandi was saying, was if you just apply the science, it's like we have an unbelievable number of tools which can prolong life.
Yeah.
But should we also be asking, should we actually be prolonging life?
Well, that's like the conversation around lifespan and health span. So before, medicine was all about prolonging lifespan. People are living longer, great. We're living till we're in our 80s, 90s, fantastic. Whereas you might get an extra 10 years from the interventions you put in place, but if you spend all 10 of those years with a massively reduced quality of life and a huge burden of disease, is it worth it? I mean, I suppose that's up to the individual in each individual circumstance, but I think we should be focusing on not necessarily trying to make people live longer, but to live healthier for longer, even if they end up dying at the same age.
Which is a lovely segue, Scott.
Yeah. Swear we didn't plan this.
Yeah, honestly. You've answered a couple of questions that I had for you as well. So yeah, we're so in terms of health span, what do you think, what can people do? What is within our control to increase our health span, I suppose, as well as our lifespan as well? What are maybe some of the habits, routines, priorities, things people should be thinking about to try and get as much out of life as they can?
Yeah. I think it's so my kind of ideas around it are really kind of molded from different people I've listened to, different podcasts I've listened to, different research I've read. So what I'm saying is very much not kind of original from me. It's from work that other people have done mainly, but the big things people can do, you can think of kind of almost like 4 pillars of health or creating a healthy life, and they fall under your physical activity, your sleep, your nutrition, and your emotional health. So kind of taking all of those, or those 4 areas, and obviously there's way more than that, but I'd say they're the kind of biggest levers we have available to pull on. And also in terms of kind of living a healthy, happy life and be able to even think about changing these things, I'd like to start by saying that I think you need to be in a relatively privileged position to be able to think about these sorts of things, and take everything on an individual basis. You could have someone living life completely optimally. They're doing is the exact amount of exercise, they're getting perfect sleep, their nutrition's perfect, and they're very, very happy. Now, that's not realistic for everyone, but you can make small changes in each area, no matter what sort of situation you're in. For me, I'm kind of lucky enough that I've kind of been encouraged to exercise and move for most of my life, so that's kind of comes relatively natural to me. But you might have someone who's not been in that situation, so then it's kind of trying to find ways for someone to maybe get into moving. And I've kind of thought about this a lot in terms of how do you encourage people that, let's try to think of the best way to put it. So if you look at those 4 different areas, if someone's maybe doing all of the different areas not as well as they would ideally like, how do you kind of encourage someone who's kind of almost at square one to kind of move on from there? Because I think if you can kind of approach the person that's almost got like no experience in anything and get them going, then it's going to be easier to get the people that are really, really keen to do things to start getting involved and looking after their own health.
I think we had a conversation about that before, that I think it's with all things as well, and I found this in my own life. Going from like 0 to 1 is the hardest part.
Absolutely.
So it's like, if you say you don't run, going from not being a runner to starting to run, that is by far the hardest thing.
So difficult.
Going from not having a podcast to trying to start a podcast.
It's like your rocket fuel analogy.
Yeah, true. Yeah, exactly that. But so Scott and I went for coffee before this and we're chatting. But it's like a rocket it burns the most fuel right at the start, and you need less and less as you get further and further away from the ground, I believe. I'm not a rocket scientist.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. The analogy works, so it's fine. But it takes the most energy to get off the ground. And I found that with anything that I'm trying to do that requires work that it is hardest going. It's like, it's a kind of lame saying, but the door is the heaviest weight in the gym. It's like getting there is the hardest part. Getting in the door, getting through all the, getting your membership and going to reception, talking to people and seeing where
it's a scary thing.
Exactly, it is
really
a scary thing. Yeah, it's intimidating, and it's it's like it's all unfamiliar. It's all unmapped territory. It takes mental energy to go and figure out where the change rooms are and where and speak to this person, and see how this fob works to get in and out these doors, and then you go into say just in this context of going to a gym, you come into this room that is full of all this weird looking equipment, full of people as well who are all doing their thing, looking as if they know exactly what's happening. It's no wonder it is so difficult and such a prospect for people to undertake.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Like, yeah, you mentioned walking in, seeing all these like funky machines that you're trying to figure out, why does this move this way? What does this do? And then there's so much conflicting information on what's the best way to do this or the best way to do that. And it's almost like it's a sensory overload when you walk into a gym for the first time, and you can appreciate why people go in and they're like, no, not for me, because that's
never again.
Yeah, a terrifying environment to find yourself in for the first time, especially if you're completely unfamiliar with what's happening in there.
How do you think you help people to go from 0 to 1 like that?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think that's where it's kind of, there's the science and the art, and maybe this is a little bit more towards the art side of things. You take the individual and you find, like, if I use my parents as an example, like I was trying to encourage them to exercise for like a number of years, and I would try and create plans, like exercise plans. I look back at some of the things I was gonna ask them to do, and it was absolute nonsense. Getting my mom and dad to go and rip 20 minutes on the rowing machine and then straight into something else. And I'm like, this is horrendous. No one should be doing this. But then the
intention was good.
I know, yeah, heart was in the right place. I swear. Then they started going to an exercise class, which they do religiously now, and they wouldn't miss it for the world. And they kind of talk about the things they really, really like, and there's a big mix of ages that come in. There's people far, far older than them that come to the classes and really enjoy it, and it's really just generally really good for them. So yeah, I think you have to take it on an individual basis, but it's kind of one of those that anything's better than nothing. It doesn't matter how small you have to start. Like something as simple, if you have no kind of exercise experience, just something as simple as go for a brisk walk around where you live is a great place to start. Like people might think, oh, I need to go out and I need to run to get fit, and there's so many different ways you can move your body. Like if there is a way of moving that you enjoy, perfect. Yeah, go for that. I think sport's a really great way for people to get into moving, and then you kind of bolt on the other bits almost as like an adjunct to the sport you're doing. But if you find a way of moving that you enjoy, and maybe that's through kind of it's a social thing as well, so you tick off two birds, one stone, you're moving and you get to spend time with other people, then I think it's a great place to start.
Yeah, that is so true. Just like exercising as part of a group I found that in my own life, that just especially if people expect you, if there's kind of some kind of social
accountability.
Pressure. Yeah, exactly, accountability. And then it's something you find fun. So I played a game of 5-a-side football last week with a bunch of 10 guys, and it was great. It was so fun. It was a bit nonsense and terrible quality football, but it was great. And it's just you get some cardiovascular exercise. You might increase your VO2 max a bit, but you also, what were the 4 pillars again?
So movement / exercise, sleep, nutrition, and emotional health.
Sleep, nutrition, and emotional health. Nice. Because I think it takes the emotional health as well.
Yeah.
So it's relationships. That's another one I think that was, I don't know, I think we both, you were talking about the podcast and other people that you might listen to and inform your philosophies on these things. I think we maybe follow and are informed by similar people, but that's a big one that is maybe quite new, is the importance of maintaining good relationships. And when you can combine exercise and relationships, that can be like two birds with one stone kind of thing, which I found to be so valuable. Like we both have done martial arts throughout our lives.
Fantastic place for getting both. Like some of the hardest physical exercise you'll ever do, but then you also make some of your greatest friends doing it. So. And
it's so fun.
Yeah, it is.
It's so fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you're training somewhere that's not fun, train somewhere else.
Yes.
Yeah, it's so fun. There's people to hang out with, and it's just great exercise as well. And it's like you look forward to it. It's like compare that to say going on a run on your own, especially in Scotland where it'll be grey and piss and rain.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's October now. We're facing down winter.
It's a rough time to be an outdoor athlete. Rough time, yeah.
It's brutal, man. It's so brutal. It's like you're just like looking out the window, say you want to train in the morning or in the evening. You know, it's dark regardless.
Yeah.
Oh man, the amount of discipline it takes to get out the door is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, going to somewhere that there's lots of nice people that are, you know, going to be friendly to you and get a bit of
dry.
It's dry.
At the start, get pretty sweaty towards the end, but at the start it's dry.
Yeah, what a difference that makes. That is. But yeah,
and then with that as well, there's kind of like there's the shared goal that you get when in sport. Like even though we say it's not nice to train outside at the moment, I've recently been kind of training with a run club, and I find myself like you go in, everyone does the same session. Like last week was 400 meters with a bit of a break in between, and you kind of see everyone a bit knackered between the reps, but everyone's kind of there to do the same thing. Everyone's just trying to get better. So there's if you're someone who does a sport that's maybe less kind of team focused, you still can find a lot of kind of social camaraderie within almost any sport you do if you want to exercise in a group.
What does your exercise regimen look like, and how has it evolved over the years as well?
Yeah, so
it's quite a big question.
It's definitely changed a lot. It's something I think about quite a lot as well in terms of trying to balance like the working schedule, the social schedule. But exercise is also a really big important part of my life. It's something I really, really enjoy, so I do prioritize it quite a lot and try and make a lot of time for it. I think when you're young, you just do it it's just fun. Yeah. Like we grew up playing football on a lot of the same teams, and it was just fun. You spend time with your mates. It was good to have the competitiveness of trying to win, and kind of martial arts was also just kind of like, oh, this was fun, and it was a skill. Like you could see yourself getting better, and that was fun. Kind of almost closed the chapter of martial arts in my life now, and more focused on endurance sports. So the thing I like about that is it's very flexible in terms of when you can schedule things in, because you can kind of organize your own time. So just now, it depends on like working weeks, and it can go up and down, but aiming for basically a kind of good split of the three different sports I mainly focus on: swimming, cycling, and running. And then I think it's always a work in progress, kind of like getting data on when's the best time to try and get a swim in. Like maybe sometimes first thing on a Monday morning is a bit tough because you have to get up in the dark, cycle all the way to the pool, go in, maybe only swim for half an hour to 45 minutes, but it's taking up an hour and a half of your day. So I think it's something that's always evolving, but that's fine. Everyone's exercise regime will kind of chop and change depending on what their life circumstances look like.
And so you're focusing on why did you, because you started doing triathlons. How long have you been doing that for now?
I'd say probably did my first one in September last year, so probably about a year. Yeah.
And what prompted the change?
So it was actually in the summer. So the main focus for the long time was combat sports, trying to get better at those. But then in the summer, I just really enjoyed being outside a bit more. It was great. I mean, I absolutely loved martial arts and combat sports. It was a huge part of my life for a very long time. But sometimes kind of when it was a really, really nice day outside, going into kind of like a basement gym and then not seeing the sun, I was more drawn to being outside, basically. And also one of the things is I come across some research that was getting talked about the link with VO2 max, which is the maximum amount of oxygen your body can use. It'll be different for every person. Was quite strongly linked with how long you're going to live, and one of the best ways to increase that was by kind of getting involved in endurance sports. I'd never.
For someone who doesn't know what VO2 max is, can you explain that?
Yeah, so when you're exercising, there'll be a certain amount of oxygen that your body can use. So you breathe in a certain amount of oxygen. Say we use some arbitrary numbers. You breathe in 100 units of oxygen. If you're a really, really well-trained athlete, you might be able to use 95% of that oxygen that comes in, and only 5% is quote-unquote wasted or not used. But if you're someone who's relatively untrained, you might only be able to use 50% of those units. So that's another 50 units that are quote-unquote wasted or not used. And the more you're able to use, the more you can kind of think of it as you have more fuel available for exercising, so you can exercise harder than you otherwise would be able to.
So it's the ability to utilize
Oxygen
that your lungs are bringing in.
Yeah.
So I interrupt your flow a little bit there.
No, that's okay. So there's a good study that basically looks at markers of longevity, and VO2 max is one of the best markers we have that will determine how long someone will live. So if your VO2 max is high, you'll live a long time. If your VO2 max is very low, you won't live as long. So I'd come across that, and I was like, oh, that'd be cool to try and get better at. And also as well, I don't come from any sort of endurance sport background. Like everything, all the sports we've done, like football was short burst.
Yep.
Short burst, break, short burst, break. Martial arts was always rounds. It'd be a maximum of maybe 5 to 7 minutes your round, so it was a very, very short burst and go. So I remember going for like a 10k cycle, which like now feels like okay, like you can do that quite comfortably, but at the time was so incredibly daunting. Like having to exercise continuously at a low level for like 30 minutes. I was like, oh god, this is gonna be tough. So it's kind of almost like the new challenge as well. Like try and get better at something that not very good at. And also as well, each of the 3 sports that you do in triathlon are just quite fun. Like I really enjoy open water swimming. I enjoy swimming in general. Cycling, the freedom a bike can give you is pretty cool. Like you can travel so far for like not a lot of effort comparatively. And then running is just generally quite fun. You can run in some cool places, run in trails, and it's nice to kind of see the progression over time. Like you can see the numbers improve over time, which kind of is like a positive feedback loop. If you see, okay, what you're doing is making you improve, which makes it a lot easier to continue doing it.
Yeah, those is another one. Again, outside my pay grade, but there's definitely something about the way the human brain is wired for seeing those little incremental bits of progress. So I've done some long distance runs, and just week on week.
Ross has run an ultra marathon, 50 kilometers.
Yeah, once, and that was years ago. But I would like to do it again. I was thinking I might. I've been running a lot more recently, as you've been seeing on Strava.
Yeah, he has. Would you do a road marathon, you think?
Yeah, potentially. Well, the Edinburgh Marathon is apparently it's one of the fastest marathons.
It's meant to be, yeah.
Either in the UK or even broader than that, maybe Europe or the world.
Yeah, because it's a lot. There's some large downhill bits, and I think it's pretty flat.
And pretty flat, yeah. So I was thinking about doing that. I think it's in the summer kind of thing.
Yeah, May time. Roughly.
Yeah. So that could be fun. But while I was training for that, the long distance, week on week, the number of kilometers I could run was increasing every week, and the speed at which I could run them was increasing every week. And there's something about that that's
it's
just
infectious.
It is. It sets you on fire. It's like, what? So I could do that in, it took me 6.5 minutes to run, or I was like doing 6.5 minutes per kilometer for that 10k last week. Then it became 6.
Yeah.
And then it's 5:45 and
drops.
What was your 10k time a couple of weeks ago?
It was like 43 minutes or something.
And what was that per kilometer?
That's 4:18 or something.
4:18 per kilometer for a 10k. Yeah. That's impressive.
I was happy with it. But then it's like you're always kind of like comparison's the thief of joy. But like you're always looking at where you can be, because like in the grand scheme of things, it's not like a phenomenally impressive thing. But not fast now, but we will be fast.
Yeah, that's another good point as well. Comparing yourself to to other people's performance, because it doesn't matter who you are. There's always going to be someone, unless you are the number one in the world.
Yeah.
Say you're Hafthor Bjornsson.
Yeah.
And in the deadlift, you know, he deadlifted 510. Was it 510 kilos?
510 kilograms.
Unbelievable. A human being can do that.
Yeah.
So unless you're him, you know, unless you're him, even if you're Eddie Hall was the first person to ever deadlift 500 kilos.
Mm-hmm.
So even Eddie Hall will now compare himself to Hafthor Bjornsson, and he might I don't know how Eddie thinks about these things, but it might undermine his feeling of achievement.
Mm-hmm.
It is so dangerous to do that, because I think that's another thing I think we're wired to do, is constantly be comparing ourselves to the other people around us. And so in like jiu-jitsu, you'd always be looking at other people's belts and stripes. In endurance sports, you can always be looking at other people's times and their ability to cycle and swim. And
I think it really depends on how progress is measured. So in something like the deadlift, your progress is pretty binary. It's how much weight is on the bar. And in endurance sports, it's how fast are you covering this distance. So they're quite good markers to basically, it's easy to avoid the comparison, because it doesn't really matter what someone else is doing. It's like, okay, did what you ran, swim, or cycled, was that faster than you'd done previously? Grand. That's all that really, really matters, unless you're someone who is like racing for the win. I think in combat sports, it's a lot more difficult to try and gauge progress, because everyone in the room's usually getting better at the same time. So you can't really kind of notice the progress that you're making. You might think, oh, I usually get beat by this person, but the other day I managed to kind of do quite well against them. Then you can say, okay, that's a little bit of progress, but the progress isn't as easily measured in these other sports where you have kind of easily accessible metrics.
Another thing, you don't know how well they slept the night before.
Exactly.
You don't know if they had a really hard day at work.
Yeah.
You don't know if they've eaten really poorly. You
They have
don't
an
know if
injury or something.
they're injured. Yeah, exactly. And so it is so difficult to actually kind of gauge where you are, which is then another reason why it's like your main goal should be to be better than you were yesterday. Kind of thing. It's like look within. It's like how much could you run last week or 2 weeks ago or 6 months ago? How far could you go? And it is much more, just more constructive, isn't it? It's more, it's a better way of looking at it, I think.
How are you finding? Because I know at the moment you're focusing on almost opposing sports in terms of you got running longer distances, but then also doing a bit more kind of powerlifting, focus on lifting heavy weights as well.
Yeah, true. I think the reason I did that was, I think it was Peter Attia I was listening to. It's like strength and endurance are two of the big longevity things.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think your grip strength is another marker for how long you might live. VO2 max, as you're saying, I think that might be one of the main ones. But then he's also talks about, Peter T has been talking recently about falls. And he sees, especially when his kind of geriatric patients will fall and break bones and like break hip and stuff, that is hugely influenced by kind of strength.
Absolutely.
As well. And so what kind of made me think, I just wanted to try it for a bit. I've also stepped away from combat sports for now as well. They take a huge amount of energy and time and effort and mental energy. And I was keen to do different things. I've been doing them for quite a few years. But I'd wanted to see what it was like to try to improve my strength and endurance. And so there's absolutely no, there's not a lot of science behind what I'm doing, but I was just alternating days. So I'd do strength and endurance. So I'd run and then lift and run and lift and run and lift. And I actually find it to be very, very sustainable.
Yep.
I find that I can lift and then run and lift and run kind of maybe like 6 days a week. And running doesn't seem to affect my ability to shift weight and vice versa. So I can still run at decent, obviously you're fatigued.
Yeah. You
fatigue yourself, but still run at a decent whack. And then the next day still shift a decent amount of weight and alternate them. But that's been the philosophy. And I tried to get a single rep. The deadlift, I tried to improve my deadlift, and it was because I saw, or partly because I saw Hafthor Bjornsson deadlift 510 kilos, which was
wild.
just. Do you reckon that's the most any human ever has lifted? Do you reckon there's anyone ever in history
it
that's...
will be. You'll hear the stories of someone back in the day who lifted even more, but it's like the state of sports science now and the performance enhancing drugs that are available. It's like, this will be, I don't think there's anyone in history that will have done any more than that. I thought you touched on a good thing there about kind of sustainability of what you're doing just now, because in any sort of like exercise endeavor, consistency is just the overarching thing you need to be focusing on if you're going to improve. And the way you kind of are consistent or manage to be consistent and keep something sustainable is in each individual session, you never truly kind of go to your absolute limit. It's always kind of a little bit sub-maximal. Like if you're going in the gym and you go and do a 1 rep max on the squat, bench and deadlift, and then the next day you try and run a 10k PB, and then on Wednesday you come back and try and do an all-out max, and the next day you try and do a half marathon PB, you're just going to explode. Like your body's not going to be able to recover from that. You're not going to adapt to the stimulus that you're trying to create. Whereas if you create... So the goal with training is to try and create a stimulus that your body will then recover, adapt to, and you come back stronger. But the way you do that is by pushing a little bit further than where you are, but never going to your absolute limits, or saving the times that you go to your absolute limits for very specific occasions. So you'll be doing the smart thing of, you're still training and pushing hard in the gym, but you're not going to your absolute limits. And then you're still running a long distance, but you're not going to your absolute limits, which means it allows you to recover and adapt. For when you get to the times where you want to go to your absolute limits, you've got all this training history behind you where you're going to be able to actually perform better than you maybe thought.
Absolutely. And there's a fantastic strength coach called Pavel Tsatsouline. I might be butchering his surname, but...
he's the kettlebell.
Yeah, exactly. And his theory is kind of like he's greasing the groove, he calls it. So he thinks of strength training as you're improving your strength, you're training your nervous system, but you're also, it's like skill development as well. So he thinks that rather than just going absolutely all out, as you're saying, for like your 1 rep max on your deadlift on the Monday, it's going to take you days and days and days to recover from very intense exercise like that. Instead, if you can keep it to say 70% and do that multiple times in a week, the development you're going to make over 3, 6 months, year. Another thing is, like, you need to be thinking about, one thing that you have taught me as well is you're thinking in potentially decades as well. A mindset shift that you gave me was that what do you want to be doing when you're in your 70s? And that is such a good question. And that's another thing I found in martial arts as well, is just like the injuries can be so, it can take such a toll on the body. Another thing I wanted to ask you about as well was your concussion.
Yeah.
Because it's on the same vein as, what can you be doing for the next coming decades? What can you be doing consistently, and what is sustainable for you to be doing, and what's sustainable for your body to be doing? And so would you share what happened when you had that concussion and how you kind of worked through that? Yeah,
I think to touch on one thing you said there about, so the thinking long term in terms of your life and what you want to be doing, that the first time I'd ever had that idea presented to me was in Peter Attia's book Outlive, where he talks about the marginal decade. So your last decade of life, which will be different for every person, but what do you want to be able to do? And when he does it with his patients, he does it in kind of like excruciating detail, as in, like, do you want to be able to get onto a plane without assistance? Do you want to be able to pick up your bag and put it overhead without needing any help? Or do you want to be able to walk to the local bakery and pick up something without needing a mobility aid? Like, these sorts of things. And then once you figured these things out, you have to kind of work backwards. So if you want to be able to run a marathon when you're 80, you better believe that you can't be on the couch doing nothing at 50, because you know that things are going to kind of steadily decline over time. So you have to work back, and you need to be at a certain level of function and anticipating a general decline that when you get to that certain age that you've got enough in the tank essentially that you can still do all these sorts of things. But yeah, martial arts is a tough one because there is a bit of a shelf life to it. You'll hear of these anomalies that are still training in their 50s, 60s, 70s. But I think we both know, and if you do martial arts, we all know the 50-year-old black belt with 2 knee replacements, like has cracked every joint, is missing an ACL, like all these just gnarly injuries. Fingers always so heavily taped up every time they come in, like creaking as they're coming away. The longevity is interesting in martial arts. But in terms of the concussion, so I used to enjoy doing mixed martial arts, and during a sparring session things got slightly too heated. We both probably escalated the spar further than we should have done, which is the classic thing in martial arts gym, and as well as being a young dumb guy.
Exactly, yeah, you're just competitive
and not letting the ego take over. And then took a very big punch to the face. Kind of felt a little bit buzzed is probably the way I would describe it. But then
your bell rung.
Bell rung, exactly. But then continued the spar, felt fine. Probably escalated it further, even still after that, which was very silly. But felt kind of okay. And then the next day, just started feeling a bit kind of like dizzy, a bit off. Tried to shake it off because I was in. I'd never competed in MMA. At the time, I always chalked it up to injuries, but I think in certain situations I was maybe using the injuries as an excuse because it's just a terrifying thing to maybe step into an MMA cage, and maybe I just wasn't cut out for it. But at the time, was in the lead up for having an MMA fight, so I just wanted to continue life as normal, just keep training, which in hindsight probably made things worse at the time. And basically, long story short, for about 18 months was just constantly feeling dizzy. Anytime I would try and move, I would feel kind of woozy and would have to sit down and settle. I'd seen a few different doctors who had just advised to rest. Okay, you just need to rest, see it out, which is no fault of them because it's just the way they were trained. But like learning now was kind of the wrong approach to managing that. But yeah, essentially just kind of like changed my life for quite a long period of time. It got to the point where I was worried I might have to take a break from medicine because I wasn't able to kind of attend classes. And it was quite scary because it was like, am I just gonna have to accept this is just how I'm gonna live my life for forever now? Like I'm just gonna be kind of dizzy all the time, and if I feel dizzy, I'm just gonna have to stay in a kind of dark room and not go and see my friends or do anything. Which was pretty worrying. But then it was a Peter Attia podcast with a concussion specialist from the US who kind of talked about concussion, and the main thing he was saying that this is a very treatable thing, and he kind of talked about the different methods available to treat the different types of concussion, because there's more than one type of concussion, which when you actually think about having an injury to the brain, it's not going to obviously be a one size fits all. I mean, there's like 40 different types of knee injury, but we think of concussion as just one thing, and something as complex as the brain, which is when you like hear it, you're like, wow, of course. But yeah, it's easy when you're blessed with Mickey. That's his name, Mickey's insight. But yeah, and then after that, kind of started just changing the way I approach it, and now, knock on wood, don't really get any symptoms anymore. Completely back to normal. Don't have any issues with it. But yeah, that was one part of martial arts that's kind of like a bit of an unspoken thing. Is some of the injuries related to the brain can be pretty life altering.
How did you end up kind of treating it? How did you?
So the main thing was actually just slowly just getting back to normal. Just try and live life normally again. Just kind of almost kind of push through a little bit more, not go like crazy and get back to everything I was normally doing. But if I started getting symptoms, rather than just immediately going, okay, no, time to rest, just kind of push back through. And you're basically, you can think of it the same way. If you injure a muscle, you go through physiotherapy to rehab the muscle, but it starts off as, say if you injure your Achilles tendon, you're not going to go in and immediately start sprinting up and down a hill, because that's going to be way too much too soon. You would start maybe lightly walking. You might do some kind of light calf raises, some light Achilles exercise, and you build up and build up and build up. It was the same thing with rehabilitating kind of the parts of your brain and the parts of your head that are involved in your balance, because that was what was off for me, is my balance was disrupted. So you kind of just slowly start working up and challenging that system enough that it doesn't kind of send you over to the edge into feeling massively dizzy. Like if I went, I'm not going to go and like to bloody M&Ds and go on a roller coaster and just like flip myself upside down. Like that'd be way too much too soon. But you can do little and often, and then eventually just kind of symptoms kind of subsided and just back to normal, which was very nice.
That is very nice. 'Cause I remember, man, when you were going through that, that was terrible. I mean, that is so debilitating.
Possibly the worst time of my life. Like it was horrendous. Yeah, it's horrendous.
Yeah, and then you also had your knees as well.
Bloody knees. Knock on wood, the knees are not too bad.
Yeah,
had a fair amount of patella dislocations. All fighting sports, really. Which I mean, yeah, it's not the best for the body. Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
I've had your fair share of injuries, but triathlon seemed to be much more manageable.
And that was another part of why it was so nice to kind of switch towards that. Is now like the injuries I get, it's more, oh, I feel a bit sore here, I'll just adjust what I'm doing, but I never have to kind of stop what I'm doing. You just kind of, if the Achilles is feeling a bit sore, okay, I'll swim today instead of run. Like you can always kind of work things around, and I feel like it's a very sustainable sport. And it's interesting seeing, you see people completing Ironmans in their like 80s. There was a woman recently at the World Championships in Kona, Hawaii, 80 years old, finished the race. Like finishing an Ironman at that age is just...
What is an Ironman?
So it's depending on what metric you like to use, we're going to use kilometers, but it's a 3.8 kilometer swim, 180 kilometer bike, and then a marathon, which is...
That is insane.
Wild.
Completing that in your 80s as well.
Your 80s.
I couldn't come anywhere near that now. I don't think I could do any of those. I don't know about swimming. Probably not. I never swim.
It's an
180 kilometer cycle is mental.
And then a marathon.
And then a marathon. In your 80s.
I know. Which is awesome. I think like you look at like impressive feats of human endurance, you think of like, Kipchoge running the sub 2, or recently they had the Adidas did a project where someone broke 6 hours for the 100 kilometers. Wow. Yeah, I think it was something crazy like 3:30 per kilometer for 6 hours. Like I don't know if you're a runner, that might make some sense to you, but go and try run that speed in the treadmill, and
go and try to do a 5k.
Go and try to do 1k.
1k at 3:30.
And I think a lot of people won't manage. But then you compare that, you're like, that's an amazing feat of endurance. But then also having an 80-year-old complete an incredibly tough Ironman. Like every Ironman's tough, but that's a particularly tough one due to the conditions. That's a feat of human endurance.
So it's so inspiring. When I hear stories like that, it makes me want to just get up and get out there. And
the message of it's never too late.
Yeah.
As well, never too late to start. That literally doesn't matter. There's plenty of studies of women in their 80s who have what we call osteoporosis, which means their bones aren't as strong as they should be, and they get them in the gym to start deadlifting, and they all make progress. They all get PBs on almost like a weekly basis, and their bone density improves. And this is people in their like 70s and 80s, so there's no time like the present to start.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah, and it's as you say, never too late as well. I've seen just studies of people who are essentially chair-bound. Would you mind filling up my water?
Yeah, of course.
Thanks, man. Essentially just stuck in chairs, and then they get people into nursing homes and getting to do just basic movements, but kind of like squatting and stuff, and the mobility improvements are just so profound.
Comes
they just
back,
are suddenly able to do so many different things they weren't able to do. And these are people that are, just in nursing homes. And so as you say, it's never ever too late.
Yeah.
So the 4 pillars, we've got exercise. Second, nutrition.
Yeah.
What do you eat? And what do you and drink and consume to fuel your body?
So I'd say of all of the pillars, this is the one I probably don't do the best at. I think maybe, I don't know, there's things I'll tell myself and things that I'm just telling myself to make myself feel better. But I think nutrition is, of the 4 things I think are really beneficial to your health. If you have I'm trying to think of the best way to say it. Have you heard of the saying, you can't outrun a bad diet?
Yeah.
If you look at all of the top endurance athletes, you would, on paper, say they have a bad diet. They consume tons of sugar, drink way too much caffeine, or eat plenty of cakes, and they're the fittest people on the planet who are probably going to live longer than everyone else. So that's where I would say, if you're doing kind of all of the other things correctly, the diet isn't as important. But I think if you're not doing anything at all, that's where the diet is more important. I think the hard thing is it's really hard to do good research on nutrition because there's so many factors that influence how a diet is going to affect your body. And if you want to do really kind of rigorous controlled studies, they're so demanding for the people taking part in them. Like having every single meal you have to given to you and watched, and also you're looking at these things over a long period of time. These studies might only last for 3 months, but are you really going to see changes that would potentially happen over years of this diet in those 3-month periods? I think the main things I would think about in terms of good nutrition is variety. Try and get plenty of different kind of fiber types, plenty of different plants, seeds. Just basically have quite a bit of variety in your diet, and I think that's probably the best place that people can go. And if you do have a problem with, maybe you are looking to try and reduce your body fat or change your body composition, then that's where you can start things of maybe reducing the amount of food that you're eating. But I think focusing more on the other 3 is probably more beneficial for most people than starting with nutrition. Now maybe in 20, 30 years, the kind of science landscape will completely change and everything I think about it will completely change. And I think nutrition is probably the one that I'm going to definitely change my mind about the most over the coming years, as we learn more about the effects of the gut microbiome on how it influences other areas of your health. But right now, I personally don't have a good amount of knowledge about nutrition. Definitely not completely up to date on where the research is at. So, but the things that do seem to be kind of the most consistent with, or the things that come out the most often, is variety of different food sources, and kind of make sure you're getting enough protein to sustain the muscle, especially into older age. I think that becomes more important. As you're trying to maintain muscle as you get to older age, you need to have the building blocks, so to say, to make sure that you're not losing things. But yeah, probably the area I know the least about, and always trying to learn more.
But as you say, if you go on any social media platform and look for stuff about nutrition, you will find people with PhDs saying completely opposite things.
Yeah.
And they will throw good studies at each other, and it's like, but what about this? What about this? What about this?
Yeah.
And it's just, as a lay person like myself,
what do you listen to?
Who exactly? It's like these people have years and years and years and years of study doing good science, and it's the area of health that I've found to be the most difficult to pin down. You'll get some people that are on the carnivore diet, you get some people who are vegans, you get some people who are pescatarians, you get some people who are, what do you call, the paleo diet.
Yeah.
I'm sure they all, and not only are people doing that, but also people survive for many, many years just eating those things. Unbelievable how the human body can sustain itself on such a myriad of different nutritional kind of categories, I suppose. Like some people do just eat meat and they do survive.
They're fine.
Yeah. And it's I've found it so difficult to figure out what's best to eat, and then also what's convenient as well.
Yeah.
It's like, when I'm coming here, for example, today, it's like I'm not wanting to be chefing up a big brekkie that has loads of different stuff. I need convenience. I need speed. I need nutrition. You're trying to hit as you're saying, like trying to hit protein. So I'd like this morning I had oats with nuts and fruit and coffee, and you're trying to tick these boxes, but it also has to fall into all these other boxes of like just living a life as well. And that's the other thing you see with nutrition is like people become a little bit, I'm not sure what the word is, I don't want to say
Fire shots.
Yeah, exactly, anything too offensive, but like they become so prescriptive and like, no, you have to do this, and if you do this, then that's wrong, and you're gonna be this. It's like, what? Where is the space for nuance and just fitting in normal life?
I think because it's such a big industry now, like everyone's trying to sell their specific diet or their specific supplement and listen to me, I know all sort of thing. Whereas if you listen to someone and their take is, I'm not really too sure, but we could probably say this and this, like no one wants to listen to that take, even though it's probably the best approach you can have towards it. People
doesn't make a good reel.
Yeah, it doesn't make a good reel. Exactly. There's no good.
We're not quite sure what the science says.
Yeah. We'll pass on that thing.
Yeah. But no, just eat steak and eggs.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, nutrition is such a hard one to pin down.
And I think like there's just so many, like in research, you talk about things that can basically influence a result. You think of confounding variables or other things that factor in. Like you think of, like you might take some research that shows, people that are on a vegan diet live longer than people that are not on a vegan diet. And then people will take that and go, well, vegan diet is the best way to do it. Or likewise with like if someone's on any other diet, on the keto diet, and they live longer than people that don't. You think if people are actively making decisions in this area of their life, they're probably making decisions in other areas of their life as well. They're probably also quite health conscious. They're probably also sleeping really well. They're probably also exercising loads, which might, maybe we'll find out different information in the future, but probably has larger impacts on their health and longevity than the actual things that they're eating. Because like you said, there's plenty of cases of people that live to the exact same age and live healthy for a long time that eat completely different things. I mean, the woman that lived the longest periods ever, 122 or something, smoked like a chimney her entire life, and she lived longer than literally anyone in the world. So, like,
that is so ridiculous. Like, it's like there's these outliers, these statistical anomalies.
Outliers, exactly. Yeah.
They just ruin your, ruin your
the
rules.
data.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, if you have it in the graph and it's just like it's like, no, you should not. That's not what should happen. But it's just. That's just life.
Do you know what she said her biggest regret was? Is that she stopped smoking from like our mid-90s to like late 90s. She said that was her biggest regret. She wished she'd never stopped. What
just
a boss.
Love the city. Just absolutely love
the Nicky Rush. You can get enough.
Yeah, and as you say, I was thinking that when you were talking about doing good controlled trials for nutrition, when somebody it's very difficult to control somebody's food and diet and calorific intake and the type of food that they're consuming, all your macronutrients and stuff. You make them every single meal and you control that, and you never know exactly, are they just getting a Greg's on the way out as well. But also, what are the other lifestyle? It's so difficult to control for all the other lifestyle factors like sleep, and how do you measure the quality of somebody's relationships? How do you, like all these things are just kind of, you can't measure.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can't control it.
Yeah. And so it just makes, I suppose maybe that's partly why nutrition science is so debated and so contentious.
Like you say, you're looking to try and identify what change is actually beneficial here. We're talking separating signal from noise. Yeah, so you have a load of noise, and what is actually the change that's happening here? Like, are these people getting healthier because of the actual diet you put them on, or is it because of some other thing that you just cannot possibly measure? It's relatively good save there.
Patterson spilled his water.
Yeah.
I'll leave it. Yeah. So if there were like principles or heuristics that maybe you would suggest people can follow for nutrition, what would they be? You said diversity.
Yeah, I think diversity is a good one. So I've read before, a good one to aim for is try and have kind of 30 different types of plant in your diet. And that sounds like a massive amount when you think of it like that, but that can include so many different things. You could have a few different types of nuts, different types of vegetables, even spices. Like that would just basically loads of variety, because you're mainly doing it to try and kind of fuel your gut microbiome, and your gut microbiome you want to be as diverse as possible. So if you give it a diverse array of fuels, it's going to be more diverse. It's one of those that the research is still emerging in terms of the benefits of the gut microbiome, but you don't really see too many kind of negative things coming out about it. So if you wanted to kind of hedge your bets, trying to think of the best way to say it. Basically, yeah, most likely down the line we're going to kind of discover even more about how useful the gut microbiome is, and it seems to be that having a diverse diet is one of the best ways to improve that. So that's definitely be one to go for. And then adequate protein intake is just kind of important, mainly I'd say further on in life, because if you have lower protein intakes into elderly, advanced kind of stages of life, you're not going to be able to sustain muscle mass as well. And like you mentioned before, you kind of have the VO2 max component, but you also have the strength component, which is really important for living a long life. And if you don't have enough protein in your diet, then you're not going to be able to maintain the muscle mass. I feel like most people at a young age tend to get enough protein. Sometimes it's maybe overstated how much we actually do need. But yeah, diversity and making sure you're getting enough protein. And then depending on what, say if you're an athlete, it's kind of making sure that you're well fueled for all of your training. So you're kind of not being afraid to have carbohydrates, because they're important for actual performance and recovery. I'd say they're probably the main things I would think about, and I don't really lean towards any kind of specific diet or specific kind of this food group versus that food group. Just general diversity is probably the best thing to do.
So kind of diversity of intake, and then also adequate protein.
Yeah,
nice.
I feel like you can't go too far
Yeah.
off if you start with that. Like,
yeah, and then I think there is space as well to be what works for you as well. You know,
absolutely.
Because some people have, say, like Glenn, my flatmate, has a dairy intolerance.
Mm-hmm.
I can drink ton. I love drinking milk.
Just a big pint of milk.
Weirdo, man.
Milk guy.
Big milk guy. But yeah, like it is very individual as well. Like,
yeah,
there are people do have, can do really well on some, like Glenn and I are a good example of just he cannot consume milk.
Yeah.
Otherwise it.
Poor Glenn, man.
Poor Glenn.
Missing
man.
out, Glenn.
I know. Or yeah. It is individual, definitely.
Yeah, there's a quote. It's like the best diet is the one you can stick to. Like if it works for you and it's sustainable. I feel like this is kind of like the main theme is what is sustainable.
Yes,
that's the main thing.
And that's another thing I hate about those like fad diets where it's like you're on crazy restricted calories for 3 months, and yes, you burn a huge amount of fat and lose a certain number of kilos. But then you just go back to exactly as your lifestyle was before.
Just bounce back.
And then, as you were touching on, there's people making bank off that as well, because they get you as part of their program. You're paying for all of their products for 12 weeks. Then for the next 12 weeks, you revert back to your old lifestyle and then back on it again. And it's just like they're just printing cash.
Yeah, and the supplement industry is just a massive, massive thing now, and like a lot of it. There probably is like some sort of benefit, but I feel like the people that are truly going to get benefit from a lot of these things are the people that are doing everything else perfectly already. Like say you're an elite athlete and you do absolutely everything perfectly. Yeah, maybe taking the supplement might be the thing that gives you a little extra percentage in terms of your performance. Yeah. But for someone that smokes, drinks, sleeps terribly, and does no exercise, I think there's other things you could maybe do before taking this.
The
like,
omega-3
supplement. Yeah, exactly. I don't think that's gonna really fix everything else.
What supplements do you take? Do you take any?
Not really a whole lot. The ones that kind of I should take creatine more regularly because it's the most well studied, safest, and has the best efficacy. And it's one of those that kind of it just does seem to actually work. And it's very cheap. And then kind of whey protein powder more if I'm having a meal that I would like to supplement with a little bit more protein. They're the only ones that I would take. I don't take anything else.
Right, cool. That's interesting as well. Because then, yeah, you hear people talk about their supplement stacks.
Yeah,
that's another big one.
Yeah, they have their sleep stack and their performance stack and their like exercise stack.
But you don't really subscribe to that. You don't.
I'm sure there is benefit, and
Sure,
maybe I would like get some increased performance in it, but I wouldn't want to take a supplement based on the marketing that was done. I'd rather take a supplement if I knew there was actual like a body of evidence that this was going to work. So the only ones I take genuinely have a body of evidence behind them.
Yeah, fair play. Sleep is for the weak.
Exactly. Yeah. Just live off 4 hours and caffeine, guys. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
Push through.
Stop being a baby.
Exactly.
Keep going. Another book that I'd say is like a perspective shifter, which we both read, is Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. Kind of just, it's one of those that in the modern world, it's kind of you live to work really hard. You can sleep when you're dead, sort of thing. Like people use, like you were sleeping when you could have been doing this. But I think people need to remember that sleep is the time for your body to recover physically and emotionally. And there's now evidence that having reduced sleep for a long period of time could be linked to so many different diseases that kind of afflict people in modern life. So yeah, one of the things that's incredibly important but quite difficult to get right. So you think of things like sleep hygiene. So how do you approach going to sleep to actually kind of improve the quality of your sleep? Something I definitely struggle with, and everyone can always get better. But yeah, sleep's one of the true superpowers we have, and the thing is we all have to do it. There's no animal on the planet that lives longer than 24 hours that doesn't have some sort of circadian rhythm. So yeah, very, very important, and I think getting growing attention now, both in like the popular science space and in the kind of the research and health space.
And so what you said, that little phrase, sleep hygiene, which I really like. What does that mean?
So I think it's like the if you think of like your general hygiene, okay, what do you do to kind of keep yourself clean, that sort of thing. It's kind of what do you do to set yourself up for good sleep. That could be simple things like the temperature of your room. So in order to fall asleep, you have to drop your core body temperature like about a half a degree to a degree. So throughout the day, your body's kind of under the governor of this circadian rhythm, so everything kind of moves up and down and flows throughout the day. So temperature could be one of them. Like, is your room too warm? Like, have you ever tried sleeping in a room that's incredibly hot? It's very, very difficult. It usually takes quite a long time for you to fall asleep. So it's basically sleep hygiene is the behaviors that your behaviors basically around sleep to try and give yourself the best sleep possible.
And what behaviors do you think we can adopt to get to sleep better?
Yeah, so I think it's like it's one of those that you do really have to just try and change slowly over time. Some people can just kind of do a bit of a cold turkey and just go straight into they do absolutely everything perfectly. I personally can't, and I've not done that, but it's things like screen time before bed. I think less so on the. It used to be thought that if you looked at the blue light,
I saw that, yeah,
that was like the classic thing was like you looked at the blue light and it keeps you awake. But my understanding is that it's actually more to do with the stimulation from what you're looking at on the screen is what keeps you awake.
Like phone use before falling asleep,
yeah,
staring
like,
at
or like phones in the bedroom sort of thing. Yeah. And I'd say the biggest one is trying to just get up and go to sleep at the same time every day. Now, I'm far from perfect at doing that, but I like try and do that, and I'd say most of the time I'm getting pretty close to doing that, but then there's times where you don't, but that's probably the best one to try and aim for.
What time do you go to bed and what time do you get up?
So it depends, like if it's a work day or if I'm planning on training in the morning, but in an ideal world I'd like to be kind of getting into bed at around about 10 o'clock and then have half an hour to fall asleep from like reading a book or winding down, ideally be asleep by like 10:30 and maybe up like 6:30 sort of thing. That would be ideal, but a lot of the time that doesn't happen. And also as well, like don't beat yourself up if you have like a poor night's sleep, and don't beat yourself up if you have a day where you kind of do just have to function on like 4 or 5 hours sleep, because you can just get through it. You can just get through the day on like limited sleep, and then just try and do it better the next time. That's because a lot of people can get quite stressed out, especially with all the kind of smartwatches people wear. It just shows you, oh, my sleep score was terrible last night, and then they'll go through the day feeling probably more tired than they actually are, just because the watch is giving them this metric. So yeah.
I had a whoop strap for a bit, and it really would dictate how I felt. Like I would look at it, I'd be like 20%, it'd be in the red.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh god, I can't do anything. I can't.
3 cafeterias today. God.
Taking the day off work.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, that is because you can. It's remarkable on how little sleep you can function on as well.
Yeah.
That is. Your body can really push through a lot, but
absolutely
most times you would be aiming for kind of like 10, 10:30, and then up at
7
6
to 8 hours. Yeah, try and get 7 to 8 hours
as a general heuristic.
Yeah,
principle. Yeah. No phones in the bedroom. That's been a big one for me.
That's a good rule. Yeah,
I do use it as an alarm, but I don't keep it next to my bed, so I don't have it on charge like on my bedside table. I keep it over in the other corner of my room, which means when my alarm goes off, I have to get out of bed to switch off as well.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, I'm a snoozer.
Yeah,
I snooze so hard, and I need a lot of sleep as well. Like I can sometimes. I mean, I can sleep for like 10 plus hours sometimes.
Yeah,
I don't necessarily know if I need that much sleep, but I can sleep that long. But yeah,
that's another important thing, is the individual differences between people. Some people genuinely do need a little bit more than others. Don't buy into it when it goes kind of the other way. Like don't buy into the I only need 5 hours, because that's when you're cutting it too short. But yeah, some people can be perfectly fine on 7. Some people might need 9 or 10, and that's okay.
Yeah. And then the fourth pillar, emotional. What was it?
Emotional health.
Emotional health. What does that mean? And what's the?
I feel like emotional health is. I think we probably all have an idea of what emotional health means, and it'll mean something different to everyone. But I think it's kind of the reason you focus on the other ones is you want to live a happy life. Like if you do everything, say you exercise perfectly, you eat perfectly, you sleep perfectly, but you're absolutely miserable.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's the point?
Yeah.
What's the point? And
you've got name mates,
belly name mates. Right. Can't be having that. And I think that like I don't really have any sort of things to think about in terms of what do you do to improve that, because that is so individual. In terms of kind of what brings value, what makes you happy. But of all the things, it's the thing you kind of should be striving to improve the most. But there's nothing really I could say that's like, do this, you're gonna be happy. It's like it's up to you. Yeah.
One of the things I've always admired about you is that everywhere you go, you make friends.
That's nice.
You have a just a way of being that makes other people want to be around you, and you maintain very, very healthy, strong relationships. So we've been friends for, maybe like coming on 20 years, whatever.
Which I think is like for young men is a pretty amazing thing. Like we've got the boys that have all been together, and we're kind of all like a little bit of a product of each other, which is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you've really shaped a lot of my the way I live my life, and
likewise back at you.
There's 5 of us who've been friends for a very long time, and we maybe we should do a podcast one day.
All 5 of us.
Yeah,
I think we should.
Might be carnage.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have managed to maintain our relationships right through from. I mean, I've been friends with Chrissy since I was like 5 years old.
Shout out Kyle, Chrissy, and Cameron.
Yeah, if you're listening, they would have tuned out about an hour and a half ago, right? Yeah. Cannot be listening to these two. But we have managed to maintain those relationships throughout our life, and it does take work, and it takes relationships are
tough.
Yeah, they do. They take effort, and sometimes you disagree about things, and sometimes you don't communicate properly, and so we've managed to maintain those relationships, which for me are one of the most valuable things in my life is our friend group. Here we are having a nice conversation in our late 20s, and we'll see, maybe we'll be in the same place in 10 years, and but then also I've seen you grow friend groups like through medicine, like you've got really close friends there, and then also, as we were saying earlier, through martial arts and martial arts gyms. Do you have any insight on how you think you do that?
Social anxiety. A pathological need for people to like me. Not joking.
The ultimate people pleaser.
The ultimate people pleaser.
But you're not, though. That's one of the things about you. You're not. You have strong boundaries, and you speak your mind, and you seem all right with people not liking you. You're not one of those people that are just, you need people to like you.
I think it's like as everyone gets older, I think one thing we can all do is try and be like pretty strict on who you want to kind of give your time to. Like as you get older, you become like time poor. You don't have as much time to spend with people. So if you're surrounding yourself with, obviously it's always easier said than done, but you're surrounding yourself with people that you don't particularly enjoy spending time with, they take energy away from you. It's good to like maybe just recognize that and then gravitate towards different sorts of people. I suppose one thing I'm lucky with is that kind of martial arts has kind of like a built-in social group, which is like kind of nice, and everyone has the shared goal. And the same with like studying medicine. Like a lot of my best friends now, we all had the same shared goal, and we've gone through it together. And now 3 of my best friends in the course, we're all working as doctors in Glasgow together, which is like an amazing kind of journey to have shared with them. It's just nice. I don't know, I can't really think of, I suppose it's like that's the complexity of relationships is you when you first meet someone, you have no idea if this is going to be someone you're going to be calling like a best friend in 3 or 4 years time. It just kind of unfolds, and sometimes it's nice not to make it too like scientific in a sense, and like just keep some things as not really too sure. That's nice.
Yeah, because there is more almost of an art to it than there is a side. Like you can't. How do you measure a relationship? You can't really. Can you?
You probably can. I feel like it's a bit sociopathic. Like
someone out there's having a scale or a unit for the quality of relationship. But
sorry, mate, we've dropped 5% in the last month. We're gonna have to work on that. Bump those numbers up. Yeah. You need data. You need data to measure. But I think for me as well, I wouldn't want to do that. There is a lot of life needs to be just experienced. Yeah. Just lived. Don't need to have answers for everything.
And your emotional health, again, it is very hard to quantify. I don't think anyone would debate that it exists and it's real. Yeah. And also it's like, I think our generation, but not just our generation, more broadly, the mental health crisis you hear is happening in society. Why do you think that might be? Like, what do you think would be? I know that's such a difficult question. You didn't think you would just get softballs, did you? No, we're getting the good stuff. I did write this one down. Sometimes I maybe think with like, is it a crisis, or is it now we're actually addressing it and talking about it, so that it's always maybe been something that needs addressed, but we've just never actually spoke about it in the past. Like our parents' generation, the generation above them, it was just like a man up and get on with it sort of thing. So then it's hard to know if people were actually feeling these feelings and experiencing these things before, or is it one of those that now that we have the vocabulary to talk about it, people are understanding these sorts of things a bit more? But in terms of root causes, there's people way smarter than me that are kind of looking into this, and
it's a difficult question to answer. I don't know what are your thoughts on it.
I think that'll be maybe part of this podcast project.
Yeah.
I would like to maybe speak to some of the people that have been studying it. It
interesting.
would be, wouldn't it? Yeah, it'd be fascinating. Yeah, I think you're spot on with what you're saying, because like people say with like autism and ADHD diagnoses, there's just this absolute explosion. But it's like, is it necessarily an explosion, or is it just that we're getting much better at diagnosing it?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is maybe applicable across the board as well. And then with mental health, I think, again, not an expert, you should be listened to. There are people well qualified, but a lot of it is subjective as well. It's very hard to measure and very hard to study. But then at the same time, I was thinking when we're talking about sleep, it does seem sometimes like the modern world is quite well engineered for people not to sleep well.
Yeah.
There are just like bright lights everywhere, especially if you live in a city like we both do.
Yeah.
There are a myriad of interesting and fun things you can be doing in the evenings.
Yeah.
Alcohol is abundantly available, especially in Scotland.
Yeah.
Phones, you've got this little square of glass that has all of the information that the human race has ever had.
Unlimited entertainment.
Unlimited entertainment that has been designed by companies that have hundreds of billions of dollars at their disposal to try to hold your attention for as long as they possibly can. There's just so many things that are trying to get in the way of you having a good night's sleep. It's like the modern world is designed almost to stop that. And as you say, like if I have, say, 2 bad nights sleep in a row, my mental health is in the gutter. Yes. I'm on my worst form, man. I'm irritable. My self-esteem's low.
Yeah.
Kind of despondent, pessimistic. Whereas when I've slept well, when I've spent time with my friends, when I've managed, I do drink alcohol, but when I've managed my alcohol consumption, when I'm eating well, when I'm exercising, I'm on top of the world.
You feel amazing.
Life's great. Yeah, everything's amazing. I'm an optimist again. You know, everything's good. So yeah, I'm not qualified to say what is driving the mental health crisis. Yeah. As you say, is there one, or are people just talking about how they feel again? And as you say, like the approach used to just be like kind of the stiff upper lip and just get on with things.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a good approach. I think that's pretty toxic. I think it means that people just suppress emotions. I think that's what leads. I mean, it's not, especially men. I think men commit suicide at a level that's much higher than women. But
the biggest killer of men our age.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so it's.
Which is something I'm also kind of grateful for with our friend group. Is something we've all talked about openly for quite a number of years, which I think is probably quite rare, and it actually is quite rare to have a group of young men able to talk about when things are going well, but also when things are not going well. Mm-hmm. Which means that now, once we're now in our late 20s, we've developed those sort of skills from a young age, which means we're gonna. Basically, I'm not worried about any of our friends, which is kind of a nice place to be.
Yeah, you hope that you've cultivated an environment where, when things are getting a bit tough and a bit heavy, that they can be shared and talked about, and you can provide support where you can. And sometimes it's just time as well, and sometimes it is just talking. Just talking. I had some counselling, some talk therapy, and the difference, it was 6 sessions, 6 1 hour, 6 50-minute sessions. Yeah. And it's just being able to try to articulate how you're feeling, just the difference that made was unbelievable. Yeah. And again, that is something that is provable by studies, like subjective well-being increases massively. Yeah. So yeah.
And also just if you were someone kind of being there for a friend, not jumping straight to solutions. Yeah. Just let them speak. Yeah. Like you said, like sometimes you don't have to even offer a single solution. Like the actual talking itself is the therapy. It is the solution.
Exactly. And just I wonder what is that? Why is that so beneficial? Just to
like
use
just
language to explain how you feel.
Good question. Yeah, very good question. I suppose it's like one of those, whenever you try and articulate something you've just been thinking in your head the first time, it never really comes out the way you want it to, but then maybe having the safe space to really talk through what's actually going on in your head. And almost when you say something out loud, you almost form your own solutions, or you get to approach it from a a different way than when it's just inside your head. I'm not sure.
Yeah, and that's also not to say that there's not great value to resilience as well. Like,
Yeah.
you are an incredibly resilient person. I think from doing, because you got what age were you when you got your black belt in Taekwondo?
You were there when I got.
I was there, yes.
Yeah, I was like 16.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember that. So that is young. You were a teenager when you got
Yeah.
a black belt, and I remember you were coaching classes and stuff, and there used to be times when at Grey Street when we would go out on a Saturday night and then you would have a
Yeah.
Sunday Taekwondo class to
I'd be
teach.
teaching 2-year-olds on a Sunday morning after a big night out in
Oh,
Glasgow.
so
Yeah.
brutal, man.
Yeah, I didn't feel very resilient at the time.
But you showed up, you got it done.
Waving bye to you guys as you're having breakfast. It was
Brutal, man.
long days.
But you got it, you did it, and you are a very resilient person. But then, and so there is, it is important to have that, and to have that kind of fortitude.
Need
and
both.
discipline. Yeah, but then you also need to be able to, you need to, there's a dichotomy there.
Yes. Nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh man, this has been a cool conversation, Scott.
It's been the first Patterson pod.
The first Patterson podcast, mate. This has been. Thank you for making the time.
No, thanks for having me. It's amazing to see the setup. It's pretty cool. Yeah,
It's
pretty
nice.
cool.
There's a lot to. I'm gonna put some artwork on this wall. It's on the way.
A lava lamp.
A lava lamp, 100%. This place needs a lava lamp.
Yeah.
I don't think I got the lighting quite right today. I'm looking at it. I can see a reflection here. I think I need to adjust that. So if anybody's watching still after this time, apologies. But
Also, thank you for listening.
yeah, also thank you. Yeah, that is the thing I want to say is if people are gonna tune in and give me their time and attention, they are the most valuable things I think we have. Like where you put your time and attention is life really. There's not much else. Time is your kind of most valuable non-renewable resource as well. So if anyone is tuning in, I take it very seriously. I take your time and attention extremely seriously, and I will respect that, and I will try to produce as much value from these conversations as I can. So yeah, as Scott says, thank you for listening this long. That's really appreciated. Hopefully it was valuable. This is the first, so there is much improvement to be made.
Absolutely.
We will iterate. We will the principle of Kaizen, just like the constant and never-ending improvement.
Yeah.
We will get that in the world now. That's
One step at a time.
yeah, exactly. That's a big cliche. But yeah, that is what the approach will be. I will continue to do this. I'll try to be doing it as much as I can. I'll be speaking to people as well from quite a lot of different walks of life and from different perspectives. That is part of the point of journalism, I think, is you want to try to see the world from as broad a perspective as possible. I think there's a lot of value in that. I think that will mean sometimes I'll speak to people that some people will disagree with, I will disagree with, but I do think there is a deep value in having long and open conversations about sometimes a bit difficult subjects, but just in a way that is thoughtful and respectful as well. And those will be some of the values and things that I'll be trying to adhere to. But yeah, it's gonna be a fun project. This is the first. We'll see how many. I think it was kind of an infinite game as well. You know, it's like you don't get to the end of having interesting conversations with people. Yeah, and as the world develops and evolves, it's a mad, intense world as well. Like we are in October 2025. The world is a very intense place to live. As we're talking about, why is there a mental health crisis?
Yeah.
You know, like 2 massive global conflicts. I mean, it's pretty reasonable that has taken a toll. It's like the climate crisis as well. You know, the artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
That came out while I was doing my undergraduate degree. So like when I started my undergrad in journalism, AI wasn't a thing, and then by the end of it, I was using it to write my dissertation.
And then what's that going to be like in 5 to 10 years?
And what are the implications in medicine as well?
Yeah, that is I think to give people an idea of how artificial intelligence would work in the NHS, I have 5 separate logins for all the systems I use. My computer wouldn't print for like 2 days, so I had to go into a different one. Like sometimes it'll take sometimes the software for looking at images won't load, and you just have to find a different computer. So I don't think ChatGPT is coming for the NHS anytime soon.
You don't say in Aberdeen you're still a lot just on paper? Like,
I'm still on paper now.
Still, so how much? Yeah, so you're still
So still all written paper notes, which is slow and honestly dangerous, because some people have, like, the stereotype of doctors having bad handwriting is incredibly true, and some people just have horrendous handwriting. You literally can't read a single thing they're saying, and this might be the specialist you've asked for their input on, and then you just can't read anything they said, and you literally just might have to phone them and be like, listen, I'm sorry mate, this is literally just a squiggle, like what have you written here? Yeah, I think if AI is gonna do anything in medicine, it'll just reduce the workload in terms of like the kind of more menial administrative jobs that need to be done. I can't see it taking over medicine, not in my lifetime.
Wow. Well, Scott, thank you again for doing this. It's just such a privilege to sit down with you and pick your brain and get your expertise. And I think the NHS is very, very lucky to have a man like you working in it.
It's very kind.
It's going to be cool to see where your career goes and
yeah,
where we go next. And maybe I'd love to do this again.
Absolutely. Because I'm very much at the start at the moment. So
yeah, we both
interesting to see. Yeah, it's true actually. Yeah,
because we both graduated in the same year as well.
We did, which was quite cool actually. Yeah, got to see you on your graduation day.
Grow and develop together and make mistakes, I'm sure, and
absolutely
make blunders and missteps, but that is life, isn't it?
It's all part of it.
Right. Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, Ross.